Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Nuclear Heat. I am Vince Russo. It is December 10th, I believe. I got to get my glasses on to check. Yes, it is December 10th, 2015, and I'm here for Wrestling Inc. Just telling you some of my stories and insights based on my experience and time in the wrestling business. I have a lot to say. Before I get into it, I want to first say this. I got to tell you, I don't think there's any level of greater ignorance, not only in the wrestling business, but in the entire world. When you make the decision that you're not going to personally like people that you never met, you don't know, you never have a conversation with, you know nothing about them, but yet you've made the personal decision that personally, not only are you not going to like them, but you're going to attack them because their beliefs, their ideas, and their opinions don't line up with what yours are. And I got to be honest with you, I've dealt with this for a very long time in the wrestling business. And to me, this is the greatest form of just immaturity I've literally ever come across in my life. I cannot tell you the people in the wrestling business that I have not agreed with their philosophies and their ideas and their opinions. And quite frankly, a lot of them haven't agreed with mine. But when you take that professional stance and it goes to the personal side, and all of a sudden you start attacking this person, you start burying this person, you start trying to strip this person of all credibility, that is immaturity. And I got to tell you, it's frightening because it's not only in the wrestling business, it's in the entire world. We don't agree with somebody's way of thinking or somebody's way of somebody's philosophy or opinion. We immediately attack them as an individual, start talking about them badly as people, start burying them to others. And, again, it's just really, really sad. I worked with so many great minds in the wrestling business that at the end of the day, I didn't agree with their ideas and their psychology. But the first thing I always did was I tried to understand where they were coming from, because most of us come from our background and what we were raised on and what we were taught. And, listen, quite frankly, I was raised by Vince McMahon Sr. I was raised on his WWF. I was raised on Lou Albano, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling, a classy Freddie Blassie, Ernie Ladd, the Valiant Brothers. This was my education growing up. Obviously, on the East Coast, the WWF was very a character and storyline driven. It was always entertainment. Chief Jay Strongbow, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So basically, when I had the opportunity to work for the WWE, 15 years ago, whatever it was, I took what I grew up on and my philosophies that I believed in based on what I watched, and I incorporated that into my job. Now, obviously, if you came from another territory or another part of the world or a different time, then you didn't necessarily agree with what I did, and that's fine. Listen, I worked with Jerry Jarrett. I didn't agree with him. I'm not going to browbeat Jerry Jarrett and talk badly about Jerry Jarrett as a person. I did not agree with the philosophy of Jim Cornette. I'm not going to sit here and bury Jim Cornette. I'm not going to talk about him badly as a person. I did not agree with some of the philosophies of Eric Bischoff. And I can't say that I'm not going to sit here and browbeat Eric Bischoff and talk badly about him, because I have, because he made the decision to go on the WWE network and sling mud at me. And listen, I am a Christian man, but, sometimes I have a problem turning the other cheek. So that's a different case in point, but it has nothing to do with our philosophies and our differences. I booked with Jeff Jarrett. Did not agree with Jeff Jarrett's philosophies in booking. Love Jeff Jarrett like a brother. I worked with Dutch Mantel. Did not agree with all Dutch's booking methods. I love Dutch Mantel like a father. I was around Dusty Rhodes when he was booking. Cowboy Bill Watts brought me into the business. Bruce Pritchard, Pat Patterson. It goes on and on and on. Kevin Sullivan, the people that I was surrounded with that I didn't necessarily agree with, but my professional stance did not make me hate these people on a personal level and go on podcasts and the internet and tell you how terrible and wrong these people were because they wanted wrestling to be that's childish. It's immature. That will never be part of my game. That is not who I am. And as I said, that's not a wrestling problem. That is a problem of the world, a huge problem of the world, when we don't understand other people and don't take the time to put ourselves in their shoes and try to figure out why they're acting the way that they're acting, and all of a sudden start slinging, hate and dirt, and that's why there's so much hate in the world. I don't play that game. I was asked to speak of a certain topic today, and that's what I'm going to talk about because quite frankly, the wrestling business has come full circle to where it was 15 years ago. 1995, I was the editor of the WWE magazine, and the WWE at the time was at an all-time low. What I'm talking about is, if you remember the period with T.L. Hopper, Freddie Joe Floyd, The Goon, Who, people like this, the business was at an all-time low. And basically, as you could see, as I'm telling you, I'm not burying the booker. I'm not burying who was working creative back then, even though I agreed with their direction immensely. I'm looking purely at numbers and where the WWE was at that time as far as the audience and the fan base of the World Wrestling Federation. So I'm a numbers guy. I look strictly at numbers. They were in a very, very, very bad spot. I was the editor of the magazine. I was a huge WWF fan my entire life. And I got to tell you, at that time in 95, it was embarrassing for me to be working for the company. I was working for a company, and quite frankly, I hated their product. And I'm the kind of guy, like, I have to say something. I have to open my mouth. And this is why. This is how I looked for it. Vince McMahon was signing my paycheck. If I hated the product and I thought the product was really bad, and obviously I was a representative of the entire fan base at the time, how do I not tell the guy that's paying me? That's what he's paying me for. How do I sit there and kiss his backside and tell him that he's great and all is great and the company is great when the product is terrible and the fans are just falling off the vine? That's not who Vince Russo is. So I was faced with a real dilemma because it was at an all-time low. The product was horrible. I wanted to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. I felt it was my responsibility to say something. At the same time, the NWO was starting. And, the minute Hogan came out and it was Hall, Nash, and Hogan, I sat there, whatever pay-per-view it was, and I said, we're dead. We are absolutely dead in the water. Now, at that time, as editor of the WWE magazine, the only way I was able to cope with this was I started the Raw magazine. I was shooting my own angles. I was shooting angles in the magazine that weren't true, that had nothing to do with what was going on in the WWE, because quite frankly, I could not follow what they were doing. So I was just doing it to entertain myself. But now the NWO hits, and I'm so intrigued by this. And this is where, the business needed to head. This is the direction it needed to go in. And I had a couple of friends that were working at WCW at the time. Two of them I will name specifically, Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash. And I contacted them and I said to them, listen, man, you got to tell Eric Bischoff about me. I would love the opportunity to be a part of what you're doing. Sure enough, one night, Eric Bischoff called me, thanks to Kevin and Jeff. And we had a conversation. And my first experience with Eric Bischoff was this guy had a chip on his shoulder like nobody I had ever spoken to in my life. I mean, I immediately did not like him. But on the other side of the coin, I realized he had a chip on his shoulder because at that point in time, he had earned it. With the addition of the NWO and all the free agents that were signed over by WCW, for the first time ever, WCW was kicking the backside of the WWE. So this guy had every right in the world to have a chip on his shoulder. I hung up the phone with Eric. He said he'd get back to me. Quite frankly, whether he did or not at that point, number one, I didn't know whether he would or not. And number two, I really didn't particularly care. But I will tell you this, the kind of person that I am, I felt dirty that I talked to the enemy while I was working for the WWE. I felt very dirty. So what I did the very next day was I made an appointment with my boss at the time was Linda McMahon. And my intention was to ask Linda McMahon the question, Linda, if all you think I'm capable of doing for your company is writing the magazine, you need to tell me that, because I know Vince Russo is capable of a lot more. Now, if Linda would have said to me, Vince, we think that's all you're capable of, then I had my answer right then and there. And I probably would have done everything I could to pursue WCW. So the next morning, I went into Linda's office and I was going to ask her that question. If all you think I'm capable of is writing the magazine, just let me know. I just want to hear it from you. Literally 5 minutes into the conversation, Vince McMahon walked in the room and took a seat. So now Vince and Linda were in that room, and I was feeling very negatively about the company, but I also wanted to desperately help, much like the situation I'm in right now, by the way. I'm very tough on the company. I don't like the direction. I don't like the content. I want to help, and I've extended an olive branch, and I've almost gone as far as to say, I will help you for free. This isn't a money issue. This isn't a Vince Russo needs a job. We're back 15 years ago. You're at the same exact spot. But anyway, I got to make this clear because this is important to everybody, regardless of what your job is, regardless of what you do for a living. This is important for everybody to hear. As Linda and Vince are sitting in that office, I realize I've got to be honest, I've got to be truthful, and I've got to take my balls in my hand. And I also have to realize that this is going to go one way or another. I'm either going to go to the next level in this company or I'm going to be fired. That's the chance I have to take. Now, you have to understand, even though it was a calculated risk, I had such confidence in myself and my ability, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was right about the direction that the WWE needed to go in, that I kind of looked at it like this. You know what? If I get fired, it'll be their loss and not mine, because I know what they need to do. And it's very, 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 very much like today. You don't want to accept my olive branch. You don't want me to help, whether it's ego, politics, all the things that go with professional wrestling, pride, then it's your loss. It's not mine. It's really that simple. I know the ratings will continue to go down. I know they're not miraculously going to change, and I know that. So at the end of the day, if you want to fire Vince Russo. I had plenty of confidence in myself. I knew I was right, and if they fired me, I'd go find something else. So I laid it all out on the table that day. And I told Vince what I thought was wrong with the product. And I've said this a million times, people that sit there and say, oh, Vince Russo always puts himself over. takes credit for the positive and not the negative, takes credit for the Attitude Era. You know what? Quite frankly, screw each and every one of you, because none of that ever came out of my mouth. All of that has come out of my mouth from detractors who put those words in my mouth so people could draw a certain conclusion and look at Vince Russo a certain way. Never at any time did any of those words come out of my mouth. As a matter of fact, what I've always said was the complete opposite. What I said was it wasn't rocket science. It was as clear as day. The WWE was behind the times. They weren't mirroring society and what was going on at the time. It was 1995, 1996, and they were doing 1976 wrestling. It was simple. Vince Russo wasn't a genius. He never claimed to be a genius. He just called it the way that he saw it, the same way I'm calling it today. You're turning wrestling into a niche product by concentrating 100% on wrestling, and no non-wrestling fans are going to watch your show. It's simple. And the wrestling fans that are watching it are going to watch it no matter what you put on the air. You don't need to go after them. You already got them. Same thing. It's simple. We've gone full circle in 15 years. We've gotten right back to 1995 and 2015. Right back to the same point. So I went in there and I took my balls in my hand and I said, listen, man, if you think this is all I'm capable of, you need to tell me, because I know I'm capable of more. Vince McMahon got hot at me. Who do you think you are to come in this office to talk to me? He got red in the face. I don't think anybody ever did this to him before, to be quite honest with you. And I remember as he's sitting there getting hot at me, all I'm thinking to myself is, bro, I just want to help you. I'm not asking you for more money. I'm not asking you for more power. I'm telling you, I'm an employee of yours. I can do more. I want to help you. And that's why when he started carrying on and puffing out his chest a little bit, I don't know, me being maybe naive, I turned around to Vince McMahon and I said, it just came out of my mouth, Vince, I just want to help you. I don't want more money. I don't want power. I want to help you. 3 days later, is when I got called into the office, is when Vince threw the magazine on the table and said, this is what the product needs to be. Boom. From that point on, Vince Russo was writing television with Vince McMahon. Then Ed Ferrara came aboard. The rest is history. Okay. There was a line in a movie that wasn't one of my favorite movies. It wasn't even a likable movie, to be honest with you. The name of the movie was Risky Business with Tom Cruise. And the line in that movie that I'll never forget, that's one of my favorite lines of all times, is Tom Cruise turned around in one scene and he said, you know what? Sometimes you just got to say, what the F? And that is so true in life. Listen, there are going to be gambles in everything. But there comes a point where if you know your rights, then you have to speak up and know you're right. You have to have confidence in your ability to know. If the third party thinks I'm wrong, then it's going to be their loss. It's not going to be my loss. I will be able to go to someplace else, to another company, and they will be able to take full advantage of Vince Russo. So sometimes you got to say what the F, because if you don't say what the F, here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk around unhappy and miserable. And you're going to be working at a job that you thought you loved, but you were going to be you're going to begin to hate it. And it's going to just become a job. It's not going to become a passion anymore. Trust me, that happened to me in the wrestling business. And the day it started becoming a job to me and no longer a passion, I walked away. That's not what I signed up for. Now, there is nobody that can tell me there aren't dozens of wrestlers behind the scenes at the WWE that are given their creative every freaking week, and in their minds, they're like, you know what? This creative sucks. This creative doesn't make sense. We're never going to get over with this creative. But because they don't have confidence in themselves, because they're not assured that, yes, we are right, this is bad, what they do is they fall into line. They do what they're told. They don't create a stir. They don't create any noise. And guess what? As I said, you're either going to go to the next level or you're going to remain in that position and be absolutely miserable. And that's what's going on from wrestlers in the WWE right now from A to Z. And not only wrestlers, writers. I know writers that are working on the show that are frustrated, that are miserable, that are not happy there. And what it all comes down to is there is one man in charge. And that man is Vince McMahon Jr. And the only way you're going to get to that next level and make the change that needs to be made is when you take your balls in your hand and you know you're right. You've looked at the landscape. You've studied the product. You know your character. And you know I'm 100% right. This will work. You take your balls in your hand and you go to the man and you tell him the truth and you're not afraid of the consequences because that's the only thing that's going to change everything. As far as I'm concerned, you got Triple H there and Stephanie McMahon that are literally waiting for Vince McMahon to die so they can take that spot. And every wrestler falls in line not wanting to go up to Vince and saying, you know what, Vince? There's a better way to do this. This is wrong because of this. How about this idea? How about this suggestion? Let me try it, Vince. If it doesn't work, I'll take the responsibility. I had a conversation with Shawn Michaels on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and it was the same thing. Shawn Michaels said to me, you know, by God, if guys need time off, if guys are hurt, then just take time off. It's that simple. Don't be afraid of losing my spot. I'm going to work hurt, and then the injury is going to get worse. Be a man. Go to Vince McMahon and say, I need time off. But that's the problem. We have one dictator, and we have a whole army of third-class seamen. And none of these third-class seamen have the balls to knock on Mr. McMahon's door and say, this sucks, Vince. You're a 70-year-old man. You've lost touch with today's society. I can help you. I want to help you. Let me work with you. Let me show you what to do. If it doesn't work, I'll take 100% full responsibility. And if you want to fire my ass, then fire my ass. Until somebody does that, nothing is ever going to change in the WWE until Vince McMahon passes away. And that's why I've offered the olive branch. I will do that. Listen, I sit here week after week after week after week. I watch this 3-hour show. I'm frustrated as hell. I'm trying to remain as positive as possible. I'm trying to give fair critiques and constructive criticism, but week after week after week after week, it's the same exact thing. Now, this applies to anybody in their job. Sooner or later, you're going to get to the point, you know what? Either I'm going to make more money, either I'm going to get to that next level, either I'm going to rely on my gut and my instincts and my talent, or I'm going to be miserable, or I'm going to be fired. That's the choice you have to make, and that's how you get ahead. And not only is that how you get ahead, that's how people respect you in life. Yeah, all my detractors, you can all sit there and you can all say Vince Russo is an idiot an a-hole, didn't know what he was doing, didn't know how to write a wrestling show, killed WCW, David Arquette, Judy Bagwell's mother. You could say whatever the hell you want to say. Guess what? Until you get the job and you draw ratings that were higher than when I was head of creative at not only WWE, but TNA, where I also brought them the highest ratings, until you do that, go whistle Dixie. Go whistle Dixie. Because there are two types of people. There are people that talk about it, what they would do, how great they would be in that spot, and there are people that do it. And that's the choice you have to make. You're either going to talk about it or you're going to do it. If you're an employee, a disgruntled employee at the WWE right now, and you're complaining to every single person in that company but Vince, including Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, then guess what? You're one of the people talking about it. You're not one of the people doing it. The only way you do it, you take your balls in your hand, you approach the guy, you sit down with him, and you tell him everything that's wrong with the show. And you work with them, and you make things better. By being a good soldier and falling in line will get the WWE absolutely nowhere. You don't take chances in life, brother. You're not going anywhere. That's all aspects of life. Every walk of life. Men, women, it doesn't matter. What separates the talk about it from the doers is taking your balls in your hand and going that next step. And that's why I have no respect for the people that talk about it. Because you could talk about it, you could talk about it, you could talk about it, you could talk about it. Until you do it, you haven't done anything and you are nobody. What do you think? Listen, man, I'm a big sports guy. The Giants don't go to the World Series last year. Am I going to sit here and bury Bruce Bochy? Am I going to call Bruce Bochy, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing, this, that, the other thing? No, I'm not going to, because the fact of the matter is he earned the spot. He's been in the business for decades and decades and decades, and he knows a little bit more about baseball than Vince Russo. Now, if I was in the system and I'd been in the system for a number of years and I was schooled and I was educated and I had some ideas of how to make the Giants better and I didn't approach the boss, then shame on me, because this guy's paying my salary and I'm not being honest with him. I'm not earning my pay. Who signs the checks? Vince McMahon. So if you think the product sucks, it's your responsibility to take your balls in your hand, stand up, and tell him you think the product sucks. Don't go on Twitter and make excuses. Don't blame the writers. Don't blame creative. Do something about it. That's what this world was built on. The people that did something about it. People hate me and the spot I got in wrestling because I had the balls to know I was right, to go to Vince McMahon and say, this is what you need to do. Either take my advice or fire me. But at the end of the day, it's going to be your loss and not mine. Just as it is now. I've extended the olive brand. It's not about money. It's not about a job. It's about helping like I helped 15 years ago. You don't want to accept the olive branch. Your loss, not mine. We see where the numbers are every week. And that's the problem. We all sit by, twiddling our thumbs, 3.0, 2.8, 2.6, 2.5, 2.3, 1.5, and after January we'll be sitting here saying 2.0, and then we'll be going below the 2.0. There's no light at the end of the tunnel until somebody grows a pair of balls over there and speaks the truth and doesn't soft soak it and takes that chance. Business will continue to go in the shitter. So that was the difference. I wasn't a genius. I've never claimed to be a genius. I've never taken credit for the Attitude Era. I was the writer. That's what I did. I wrote the show. My job was to make the talent look as good as I possibly could. That was my job. The rest was up to them. And I had the honor and privilege of working with some of the greatest performers in the history of wrestling, no doubt about it. The greatest you will ever see. I had that honor of writing for them. And that's what I did. But there wasn't genius in saying, you're behind the times. You need to get up to speed with society. Just like today, it is Wrestling 101. The only people this show is going to draw is wrestling fans. If you want to turn the wrestling market into a niche market, have at it. It's your company. It ain't mine. But as far as I'm concerned, if I have a 3-hour block on television every Monday night, I want as many people as possible to watch the show. Therefore, there has to be a little bit of something for everybody. That's how the Attitude Era was built. It was a variety show. There was stuff for men. There was stuff for women. There was stuff for college, people in college, people in high school, kids, you name it. There was something for everybody. And there was wrestling. Today, there's wrestling. There's nothing else for anybody else. So if you don't like wrestling, you're not going to watch the show. Real easy. And the number is going to diminish and diminish and diminish like it's diminishing. You're going to sit there and tell me the times have changed? It's a different time. A zombie show is doing 18 million people. Why is a zombie show doing 18 million people? Are zombies watching the show? Are there 18 million zombies walking the planet watching the show? No. They watch the show because of the characters and the storyline. That's why 18 million people are watching a zombie show and 3 million people are watching a wrestling show. That's why. Your DVR crap, your the times have changed garbage. Lip service to cover the failure. The failure is nobody's got the balls to speak up. Plain, simple, end of story. I will see you Monday night. I will watch Raw right here on WrestlingInc.com. We will continue to critique the show from a critical point of view and try to be as constructive as we possibly can. However, until a change is made, that's what it's going to be. So love me, hate me, I really don't care. I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you what I feel, and you just got a boatload. Have a great weekend, everybody.